Hey everyone, Shelby, 88 Fox. Welcome to the channel. This is going to be the first video of hopefully many future videos to come. That kind of depends on you and how many projects and all kinds of stuff that we can find to do. So behind me sits my grandma's old car that recently passed. It is a 2000 Mercury Grand Marquis. This car has some suspension issues that we are going to be resolving. So I will show you how I found these suspension issues and we will go through a repair together. This is the first Grand Marquis that I've worked on, so I can't give you like every list of tool and everything that's needed, but you know, we'll work it out. We'll have fun. So yeah, let's do this. So before we get started, I kind of want to give you a little bit of history of this car. This car was purchased, I believe, brand new with like just a couple miles on it. It's actually in really good condition, and my grandma recently passed last year, and my grandpa finally gave me this car. I didn't really know what to do with it, so I kind of decided I wanted to just fix it up, make it a daily driver, and then we'll probably do some stuff to it at some point in time. Since I got it, I've tinted the windows, and that's about it. It runs great, no check engine light, no nothing. But the front of the car does float quite a bit, which is funny because when I was in high school, we used to take this car, me and my friends would get in it, and we would you know, do our thing, but everybody called it the boat because the front end of it floated so bad. So now that I'm older, wiser, more experienced, I have thought about it a little bit, and driving this car after the first time in like 15 years, that floating is not a good thing. So I got under here and I found that. Yeah, that is a shock that is not bolted to anything. So it's not a surprise why this thing floats, because the only thing that's been holding it up is that. Now, when I came under here, I noticed a couple problems. So first one being this ball joint over here, upper and lower, both pretty rough shape, as well as that sway bar mount, or whatever you call it, sway bar end link. So we're going to be replacing those today. And then just as well, I went ahead and bought a full suspension kit that has tie rod, end links, tie rods, and I think it comes with the pitman arm as well. I don't know that we'll be replacing those yet. Might just keep them in the box. But yeah, that's kind of the history of the car and some problems. So real quick before we jump into the breakdown and the repair of this, there is a quick diagnostic you can do to see if there's problems with your suspension in the front end, opposed to just a visual check. So it's really quick, really simple. Essentially, you grab the top and the bottom of the wheel once it's elevated, and you rock it back and forth. And then after you rock it back and forth, if you can feel anything while you're doing that, it's usually in the upper or lower ball joint, and you can feel that separation there. It means that one of those are bad. Now you can also do a side to side rock, and what that'll show you is it could be ball joints, but probably not, but rather your tie rod, pitman arm, those kind of things. So I rocked it. I didn't feel any looseness on both sides, so I'm happy with the way that the tie rods and pitman joint or pitman arm, and that looks. So I think that we'll just be replacing the lower ball joints, which actually come as a full control arm assembly, as well as the sway bar end links. All right, so we'll go ahead and get started here. We'll speed up this video footage and then just pause it when there's something interesting or any problems that I incur, but should be pretty straightforward. So first thing we're going to do is take these wheels off. Move that wheel to the side. Oh. All right, and so now you can see that upper ball joint a little bit better. So you see how this is all busted? Look at that, that just fell right apart. Yeah, so even though it didn't have any play in it, that's pretty close to disastrous right there. So we'll go ahead and pull this and then those back there, and we'll see if we can pop this out. So thus far, we've taken the brake caliper, brake rotor off. We also took out the wheel speed sensor. So now we're going to try to remove the rest of this knuckle. We're going to pull the lower ball joint, nut, the upper ball joint bolt, and then we're also going to loosen this off, get that sway bar end link out of here. And we're gonna have to, we'll probably just loosen this up and see if it swings over as far as this tie rod is concerned. All right, so finally got everything off as far as the spindle goes. Here is the spindle. There's what remains of the ball joint. See if we can get some light on the situation. But yeah, I had a hell of a time. Hey look, there's the fox body. We'll have some cool videos on that here at some point. But I had a hell of a time getting that ball joint out of there. That's kind of what remains of it. So essentially I had to break everything off and then pull out a couple of angle grinders, cut it off at the stem there, and then go from there. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to remove this upper bolt, or this upper control arm, because like I said, this is a full control arm replacement that I got. And then we will be moving the jack stands, and then we'll be taking this lower control arm off as well to get to that side. And as you can see, we've got everything else out of the way. Last thing to actually remove after that would be this little sway bar. What do you call it? Yeah, I can't remember. But then we will be able to put everything back together. All right, so we shall get started. Well, I said we'd go ahead and get started, but I think I'd rather unbox all the parts first. Just make sure we got what we ordered. Ordered everything from Rock Auto. I love their stuff when it comes to like OEM or economy, or if I'm just trying to like flip a car or do something like that. But I have had the wrong parts sent to me, so we'll go ahead and do that now. And I guess we'll just go ahead and do like a little unboxing. So here you go. That looks like a control arm. That would be right. That's one of the lowers, which leads me to believe that this would be the second lower. Cool. Let's go ahead and yeet that motherfucker out of the way. And we will go on to the next box. All right, we have the end link. Another end link. Oh wow, this came with, yeah, a lot of stuff. Or wait. What? What? Oh, I don't know what any of this is. Let's see. Okay. So that's a tie rod. We're not going to be using that. That is a Pitman arm. We're not going to be using that. And this feels like an end link. No, that's another tie rod. Let's see what these are. Okay. So we got a whole bunch of stuff here. I think extra stuff than what we originally ordered. Okay, so those are tie rod ends. I don't know what's going on. I feel like we got a whole mess of tie rod ends. This should be our little, yeah. Yep. A whole bunch of stuff we're not going to be using. It's almost like we got double of everything. I think we... Okay. So there's a sway bar. Link. There's the other sway bar link. Alright. So we do have that. Okay. It's not the pitman arm, but I can't remember what it's actually called. But we're not going to be using that. There we go. Upper control arm. Upper control arm. And we got a magnet. Thank you, Rock Auto, for the magnet. I guess we will go ahead and put that on the fridge later. So we got our two lowers, our sway bar end links, and our two uppers. Okay. They look good to me. Alright, so now anyways, I feel comfortable that we got the parts. Yeah, we'll go ahead and continue teardown. Alright, so if you look right over in here, maybe, you see this bushing control arm. And then you got these nuts, or this nut to hold it all in. This thing is really, really tight. There's another one right on the other side. I'll just have to show you that. Once you get in here, you can see for yourself. Back that all the way out. You might be able to get 3/8 on there. Let's see, 3/8 21. So, GoPro died, like right in the middle of recording. So, I was sitting there talking to y'all, showing y'all some stuff while nothing was happening. So, as you can probably see, my first video is going swimmingly. I guess it could be worse. But here we go. So, lower control arm is out. All we had to do was remove those big boys from here on the inside and here on the inside. And then they got the two little tabbed nuts like that in there. One thing to be mindful for, it is got this shock and spring on there, so we had to remove the top of the spring or shock mount which is fine. You would typically remove those, but as I showed you in the beginning of the video, those weren't even connected to the lower control arm, so we're getting new hardware for that anyways. When you put it back up, this is going to be the side that goes towards the front of, or the top of the car, and then that'll be the bottom of the car. And then this is kind of what it looks like with nothing there. So yeah, it's a lot that has to be removed in order to get everything. So there's where the upper control arm mounts in. Still kind of hard to see. I'll try to get some better lighting for y'all later. And then right back here, in those two holes, that's where lower control arm mounts. And you got your sway bar end link right there. These sway bar end links, they actually have to use that guy, the T40, because if you see on the bottom up here, it's got a little T40 slot, as well as this nut. That's so that this doesn't just spin when you're trying to knock it off with an impact. Sometimes you can get it, sometimes you can't. In this event, we could not. So yeah, all right, now it's time to put everything back together. I think that the GoPro is actually overheating a little bit, because when it shut off, it was pretty hot. So I will try to do a time lapse once I get everything organized, but we'll see how it goes. So we're up early. Went ahead and called it a day yesterday, and before I got to go to work, I'm going to go ahead and start getting this driver's side completed. It's always a good idea to not throw away your old parts. The upper control arm is different than for the passenger, or for the driver's side, is different than the one on the passenger side. So I had to compare the old parts with the new parts, and to make sure we got the right one. Also, this little bump stop did not come on the lower control arm, so I had to take that one off the old one and put that on there. So these are the parts that we're going to be replacing, so we will go ahead and get into changing those out. So first we'll go ahead and get this lower control arm mounted in. So now we need to get this spring back in here. If you look, you have like little grooves inside the actual control arm. So that's where you're gonna, the lowest point of that groove is where you're gonna want that part of the spring to actually sit. So that's where we're gonna put it. And then it's gonna go up in here. And then we will use this jack to get it up so that we can get the spring in there, or the shock in there, and then mount the shock in. All right, so again, my camera quit. Doesn't really matter because I would have had to stop the video anyways. Let me tell you, this is not for people to give up easily. I did get the upper and lower control arms on, and I'll show you. So as you can see, the lower is there, and then we got the upper up here. I haven't bolted that together, but let me explain to you about this lower. So if you see, you got a spring there. It's not a coilover, it's just a spring, and then the actual spring attaches, or the shock attaches down here. So there's two ways that you can do this. One way is probably going to kill you, and then the other way you could die. So I decided to go the route of could rather than will. Not that I didn't try the other way. As you can see, I've got these spring compressor tools. They just did not work out. So what I ended up doing was I put the upper control arm on, then I attached the spindle, and then I attached the lower control arm where the ball joint is. Okay? So then I put the spring up into position on the control arm, and then using my handy dandy jack and this pry bar and that dead blow, I lifted up from the bottom to the top with this to compress the spring with the jack, and then I lined up the arms of the control arm. Well, I guess the mounts would be what the technical name would be. And then I used the crowbar to line it up, get the bolts in, bolt it up. As soon as I did that, while I still had tension on the jack, went ahead and tightened down the ball joint nut, and then as well as tightened down the upper control arm bolt and nut as well, just to make sure that I had plenty of support there. And then once I let off, everything was good to go. I just threw the shock back in a minute ago and bolted it up. If you recall from earlier in the video, the whole reason we started this campaign was because the shock was not connected to the control arm at all. It was a very bouncy ride. So all I have left to do, put the sway bar end link in, put the caliper bracket, caliper rotor back on, and then I have to put this little bar back on because I had to move that out of the way because it goes right across this little bridge for the control arm. So that had to be removed in order for me to get there. And then this side will be wrapped up. So, oh yeah, I have to tighten the mounts for the upper control arm as well, and tighten down the shock a little bit more. But yeah, we'll come back when it's all put back together and we will check it out. All right, so that's it for this side. Upper control arm mounted, sway bar end links mounted, and then obviously the lower control arm ball joint assembly. Got the rotor back on, got the vehicle speed sensor in there if you can see it, or you can at least see the cable, and tie rod back in and the cotter pin in place. So now all we need to do is put the wheel on this side and then head off to the other side. So see you then. Alright, so I came in to work on the car and start the video to get some more video footage for y'all, and turned out I must have left it on or something. My battery died, so I went ahead and carried on while at the battery charge. But I want to go ahead and show y'all where I'm at. I got everything out, got the ball joint out, or the lower control arm, upper control arm, and everything. I've got everything mounted back on, but I do want to show y'all the process of putting the spring back into the lower control arm, getting the lower control arm mounted. I think that's actually beneficial. So first I'll kind of show you the setup, and then I'll try to get some lighting and position the camera somewhere so you can actually see it in process. So if you look, I've got the upper ball joint installed. I went ahead and got the sway bar end link put in there. It's just kind of hanging right now, but I do have it bolted up because that was kind of a pain on the other side, so I figured I'd just go ahead and get the bottom side mounted on the actual sway bar. And then I've got the lower control arm just sitting here bolted up to the spindle. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and set this camera up and show y'all how I did the opposite side, getting the spring in there. All right, so I've got everything in here. Going to go ahead, and I've got this loose. The spring mounts up in here, and then down here there's a little notch where this part of the spring actually goes. If you're looking at the spring straight up and down, you're going to want this flat part at the top and sitting in this little crevice there. This bottom part, like I said, there's a notch down here, so that's where you're going to want to have that live. So go ahead and put your spring into the isolator, and then kind of sitting roughly where you want it. Make sure your lower control arm is going towards the position of the brackets, and then take your jack, and there's a little lip here. Put your jack on that lip and start jacking it up slowly. Once the spring moves a little bit, gets a little tension on it, you're gonna have to kind of let it sit there and hold it so that you don't bind it up. kind of get your hand in there and feel where that little isolator is. Make sure everything's pretty loose. Get your spring still seated pretty good. And go ahead and give it a little bit more. Kind of beat it into compliance as you go forward. Everything looks pretty good. Gonna go ahead and readjust a little bit. This is where a dead blow comes in handy. And actually, this lip is bent a little bit. So we'll try to straighten that out a little bit. Keep on jacking up. Use your pry bar. Do some adjustments as you go forward. So this little lip is bent on this side. So let's see if we can flare it out a little bit. And then keep on keeping on. There we go, that side popped in. This side popped in. Now, we want to just at least get one of the holes lined up. Doesn't really matter which one, but get one of them lined up. That's going to really, really help you out. With what you're doing here. This one's actually a little high. Good thing about this jack is it loses pressure over time. So I can just kind of sit and watch it. Alright, I got a bolt in on that side. It's not going all the way through yet. See if we can give it a little bit of love. And we'll try to give it a little more love with the impact. We're not putting the nut on it yet. I just want to get it started. Got the wrong socket on there. And I'm gonna give it a little bit more pressure. Line that bolts up a little bit. see if we can get that bolt to go all the way through. Oof, we're close. I don't want to let off the jack too much, but it does need to come back a little bit. Good enough. All right, so now we're in the clear for the most part. We got that bolt in. It's protruding through the backside. Let's go ahead and continue raising up. We got a little lip back here. Oh, this isn't really going to work for us. I'm okay with letting off a little bit of pressure so we can readjust our jack here. But springs and shocks and stuff are pretty gnarly. They can do some real damage. They've actually killed people. So you want to try to be as safe as possible while you're doing a bunch of sketchy stuff. Alright, so we got them protruding through both sides. Sorry. Put these nuts on, get those cinched down, and then we'll put the spring in right under here, bolt it up, and we'll tighten everything down, put the rotor, brake system back on, and this side will be wrapped up, I hope. So got the car up and going last night. Noticed that the toe end was out a little bit, which I guess isn't too surprising. Used aftermarket parts, not factory Ford Mercury parts. So just sent it to Goodyear, got a wheel alignment done on it. Dude did a pretty good job, no complaints. Got everything in the green, which makes me happy. So yeah, this car's ready to rock and roll. Well, needs an oil change, but you know, there's that. So yeah, I'm driving it around right now. Going to go home, get some stuff cleaned up, and then we'll be on to the next one. Hopefully next time we'll have some better lighting, some better camera quality, those kind of things. But for now, you know, I hope y'all enjoyed it and maybe learned something. Didn't learn something, sorry. It was kind of a pain to do this. Got more where I was gonna try to do more teaching, but ended up just wanting to get it finished. It took me 3 days to get all the suspension stuff done. Granted, I only had a few hours to work every day, but it's life with kiddos, so it is what it is. But yeah, thank you. Join us for the next one. Take care.